and grew up on TV, 80s and 90s TV, not very good for the mind or the soul. I knew about recycling, but was in no way an environmentalist. It wasn't part of my life. We were very much a loving, big family with Irish Catholic roots, but nothing related to any kind of alternative culture. And then coming out and seeing this kind of lifestyle, these alternative ways that things could be done, really opened my eyes to what was possible. And at the same time, I went to do music industry management at university, and I thought, how can I manage an artist or run a record label when there's something called a carbon footprint or sustainable development, and we're overshooting all of these limits on the planet? And then I could see ways, solutions through places like Green Futures, through the alternative cultures that I'd come to discover through festivals and alternative culture, alternative parties, should we say. But I could see the mainstream was very much going in the opposite direction. So I thought, well, how can you take something that's a counterculture, essentially, and bring it into the masses, which is what is necessary in order to make significant change and live differently as a people. So from my perspective, it's definitely been a significant influence. Meanwhile, I also became an aerialist because of endlessly climbing on things, which meant that I got to meet Pip. Actually, we met at not a free party, but a very badly organised festival in Spain in 2004. But this showed also the touring world, and when festivals move around and something grows from there and goes around the world. And I'm not going to go into too much more detail on that, because we're going to hear from each of these amazing individuals and their stories. You do have enough time to really tell your story as well, and then we'll come back to that question of, is this the birthplace of the Green Revolution? So, Sam Hermitage, I'm going to start with you, if you'd like to tell us.
All it stands for?
Exactly, and your story within it, your journey.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I'm a baby boomer, and my parents were very tied up and traumatised by the Second World War. And, that's what wars do to people. They don't do them any good at all. The youth culture was developing, wasn't it, in the 60s, and with the hippies branching out and LSD and all that stuff. And festivals were around we've always had festivals. They're always a part of celebration for everyone, and they've always been there, I guess. They've always been there in some form. And as far as I was concerned, my upbringing was totally different to the festival culture, and I was just sort of hooked on to those guys at school that wore different clothing to normal and stuff. So, through that it was kind of like a transition. I went to a few free festivals in the 70s, and I realised how people could express themselves and start to live together and to start to communicate and learn from each other. So, that's how I got introduced to this kind of festival. And then in the 80s, of course, was when I started to get involved in the organisation point of view, and I was involved with a festival in Kingston, which was quite a groundbreaking festival called the Kingston Green Fair, one of the earliest green fairs in the world, I think. So we were very privileged to be involved with that, along with people like Des Kay and Jean Fiddler, who's in the audience. Yeah.
That's a wave, Jean.
And so we were involved with that. And we started putting together green ideas at this festival, and we were amazed at the amount of green ideas that people had in different forms, in different ways. So, through doing that, we got introduced to Glastonbury, and we got invited to work at Glastonbury on this field. So I've been working on this field since 1990, and some of the early people, Dale came on the field many years ago with wind phones, these wind phones. I'm not sure you actually paid for the pitch. Did you pay for the pitch?
He never asked me to.
Oh, we'll settle up afterwards. Yeah, so that's more or less my story.
I remember the Kingston Green Fair. It was hugely inspirational. Again, like being in London after going to university, it took it into the centre of the city as well, and you might find more things perhaps out in the country where people are more connected to nature. Have you found, this is what's that, 35 years ago that you were doing Green Futures, and then even longer with Kingston Green Fair. What's the shift that you've seen since that time? Like the response that you get from people, do you think things have progressed? Have they got worse? What's the influence been?
I'm sure people accept green ideas and principles as part of the mainstream, and alternative energy, renewable energy is a must. We have to have it now, but whereas in those days it was a new thing, and it was a thing of people made fun of it. It wasn't really people couldn't accept that we could actually live our lives using renewable energy. So that's some of the changes. A lot of the principles and changes of green thinking come together at these sort of events and have a kind of ripple effect, and people learn. It's like a bit of a university, isn't it, a festival like this? And people are influenced by all sorts of things at festivals, quite a lot, drink and drugs. But on the other side of things, people watch things and they notice things and they are impressed and inspired, and I think that's our role. That's what we have to do.
Thank you. And Pip, I'm going to come to you. I know because we've both described how we came from quite a different background actually, but I know that you were at Glastonbury from very young and immersed in that world. Can you tell us your story, how you went from being in diapers around on festivals through to what you're doing now?
Okay, so I was from a family of artists and grew up in a very, very sort of alternative artistic kind of way. My brother started Mutoid Waste. He was 20 years older than me, Joe Rush. So I used to come here, as you say, I used to come here in nappies. My parents would drag me around the place. I remember some pretty crazy things, although when I was a kid I didn't realise they were crazy. I just thought the world was full of nutters. And as I grew up, realised that was quite a small scene. But I was always interested in tinkering with cars and bikes and a bit more into technology than my family. And funnily enough, I actually remember coming here. I don't know how old I was, maybe an early teenager or 10 or something. And I remember seeing a solar-powered, radio-controlled car, robot, and other festivals and things. Started to realise that we were never going to get very far just using art budgets. So I'd seen my family be pretty good artists and never really get anywhere financially because it's so hard to get the money. It seemed like it was all the industry around the artists that always made the money. They were sculptors. So me and my friend kind of realised that all the money at festivals was going into staging and infrastructure. So we started making stages that were sculptures and started taking those stage budgets and using that to build art. And because we were young and skint, we were going into scrapyards, and we'd learned from my brother about getting stuff from scrapyards. We found a couple of really good contacts in military scrapyards. And at the time there was lots of wars happening that our government were involved in, and we were pretty pissed off about that. There were marches happening, and it just felt like the only reaction to the march from the government was, like, as far as we could tell, banning marching, which pretty pissed us off. There was a bit of a pissed off kind of vibe amongst our generation, and we were getting towards 2008, I suppose, when the crash happened, and there was a lot of people that were just generally a bit pissed off. But we started to get really hopeful and really enjoy going into military scrapyards and taking this military scrap, which you could buy whatever you wanted. You buy like aeroplanes for £100 a ton, dragging them out and making them into stages. It just, for us, felt really positive. It felt like it was something that we could do, and it was bringing people together, and it was kind of creating a real buzz around the idea of recycling, and certainly between us it was creating a real buzz about repurposing technology and what you can do with technology. And I guess it was a time and a place, and it grew. So we started off, we were going to be in a dance village, and my brother found out, and he was like, well, there's no way you can come into Glastonbury and not be part of our area. So there was was it called Midnight Carnival, I think at the time, or Trash City. They gave us a little corner of Trash City to do our dance music, Little Arena. And the first night it kicked off, we were only supposed to have a few hundred people around the sculpture, around sort of some fires, after hours thing. But it ended up with 5,000 people all over it, going absolutely mental. And the next page was then NME magazine, Glastonbury's new late night area, and Michael Evis, fair play to him, was like, okay, well, we've got a new late night area, let's do it. And it sort of grew and grew, so it was 5,000, 10,000, and within a few years we had like 20,000 people, and Southeast Corner was bursting at the seams. It's causing quite a lot of issues with crowd control, crowd management, so we managed to navigate moving up this way. Lots of long negotiations with trying to find a space that wasn't upsetting anyone. Amazing kind of like relationship building with the Greenfields, whilst navigating the fact that everybody at Greenfields is like this beautiful chilled energy, and then we're coming on their doorstep with this massive raging noisy beast of a thing. So we managed to find a space over there up by the park. We, being really inspired by the Greenfields and the green aspect of the festival, we started to lean really hard into recycling, lean hard into recycling biofuels for our flame systems for a good period of time. And it's grown and grown and grown. We now have 50,000 people squash into that field after hours, and people seem to really get the repurposing, really get the recycling. BBC even found footage of the helicopter that we've got over there for the Dragonfly in the Falklands War being used, and did a whole documentary last year about transforming this bit of military stuff. So it's a really great place, Glastonbury, I think, for ideas to bubble to the surface and vast amounts of people to engage and